What's growing on, gardeners? On today's video, I'm going to show you the best way to grow onions ever. Seriously, after trying every way to grow onions possible, this is the method that I keep coming back to because of the incredible success I've had. So if you struggle to grow onions or you just want to level up your gardening game, give this method a try.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and check out my Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom apparel and gear.
For the age-old debate of what's the best way to grow onions, from seeds or from sets, well, I settled that argument in my own mind years ago. It is growing onions from seed, hands down. Growing onion sets are too inconsistent, they often fail to bulb properly, and they're expensive. Growing onions from seed is a lot cheaper, they always bulb correctly, and you get way more varieties to choose from. So if you like growing onions from sets and you have a lot of success doing it, feel free to keep doing it, but I quit that method years ago, and from now on I only recommend growing onions from seed. The planting method outlined in this video holds true for all seed-grown onions and their cousins, so that includes bunching onions, bulbing onions, as well as shallots and leeks. You can use this exact method for all four of these crops, but you will need to exercise caution when growing bulbing onions and shallots. Bunching onions and leeks do not produce bulbs. We harvest them for the stems and the greenery. Therefore, they are day-length agnostic. Seasonality has basically no effect on them, and they are both brutally cold-tolerant and heat-tolerant. I grow both of them year-round here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina, and you probably can too. They can tolerate temperatures as cold as 0 degrees and as hot as 100 degrees, so plant them successively every season for a non-stop harvest year-round. Bulbing onions and shallots need more attention because they are very sensitive to day length. There are 3 types of bulbing onions: long day, intermediate day, and short day. This nifty onion growing map will help you decide which type you should grow based on your location. When growing onions for a summer harvest, ensure you follow this map. That is because the higher your latitude, the longer your day length is in the peak of summer. So for us northern hemisphere growers, folks very far to the north need to grow long day onions. Failure to do so will result in premature bulbing and tiny onions. Conversely, folks in the south will need shorter day onions. Growing an intermediate or long day onion in the south will also result in tiny onions because the summer days here in the south are not long enough to trigger adequate bulbing. In the southern hemisphere, this is all reversed. The further north you are, the shorter day the onion you must grow. Now, shallots are also day length sensitive and are planted similar to a long day onion. So for that reason, they're a little bit harder to grow in the south, and they don't get as large as they do in the north. However, I've still had pretty good luck growing the varieties Davidor and Zabroon, with the Davidor shallot having the best results for me here in North Carolina. Bulbing onions and shallots are also very cold hardy. While they aren't quite as cold hardy as leeks and bunching onions, they do survive unprotected in my garden all winter, and they thrived last year despite 5 nights at 18 to 19 degrees and 3 inches of ice and snow. Under row covers, I estimate growers down to zone 7, maybe even zone 6, can grow bulbing onions year-round regardless of season. But when growing onions off-season, you have the best shot at bulbing by growing short-day onion varieties no matter where you live, because growing them outside of the summer harvest window will result in a harvest window with less daylight. So last year, I planted fall onions for a late winter harvest and had pretty good results growing short-day onion varieties. They weren't quite as large as my summer onion harvest, but they still did well, all things considered. So I'm going to repeat the process again this year. This winter, I am growing 3 short-day onions, Texas Early Grano yellow onion, Red Creole red onion, and Crystal White Wax white onion. I'm also going to try growing the Zabroon shallots over the winter just as a fun experiment. Since they emulate a long day onion, they may fail to bulb with our short winter days, but it's worth it just to see what happens. Worst case, I will harvest the greens of the shallots as spring onions. I'll place links down in the video description to these onion seeds if you want to try growing them. And now I'm going to show you the best way to plant them for maximum germination. I've tried every way possible to start onions, and this is by far the way I've gotten the best germination. I'm going to start off with a basic seed starting mix. I'm going to use this Jiffy mix because this is readily available. I'll put links in the video description to all these different items. I'm then going to use a medium vermiculite, not a coarse vermiculite. I want it to be something finer, and the reason why I'm going to add some vermiculite to it is because vermiculite has antimicrobial properties and it also helps retain moisture, so this limits the risk of damping off disease. Then I'm going to use a very tiny amount of a basic all-purpose organic fertilizer, a very small amount, because I will be using this in my office, and if I put too much it's going to stink up my office. So I'm only going to put in a pinch so I won't have any odor. Then I'm going to use these old pickle containers that I get from these Grillo's pickles. Now you can use any container you wish, but these plastic pickle containers I found are perfect for starting onions with the lids. Very important to have the lids to regulate moisture. And I have not drilled out any holes in the bottoms of these containers. I'm going to start my seeds indoors, so these will never be subject to rainfall, so I can very carefully regulate the amount of moisture I'm giving my onions, so therefore I'm not going to drill any holes in the bottom. So we are going to take our pickle containers, and at the bottom of each we're going to put down close to 2 inches of seed starting mix. We need enough mix that the onion seeds can really grab hold and make some decent roots. Onions like waiting until they're a little bit larger to be transplanted. Then to each of them, I'm going to take a handful of the vermiculite and then a small pinch of organic fertilizer. We're talking about maybe a tablespoon tops. I do not want this to stink up my office indoors where my grow lights are. Then we're going to take our hands and mix them up really well. So once everything is mixed up, we want to make sure that the mix inside is very level. So we're going to give it a light shake, and then I have my pre-made plant tags because it is very important that we tag everything properly. I'm going to start off with the yellow onion, which is the Texas Early Grano, and I'm going to sprinkle those onion seeds in my hand. And then I'm going to take them and I'm going to lightly drop them roughly evenly on top of the soil. And this is probably a teaspoon of onion seeds. And then I'm going to put the tag in there. Next we're going to do the red onions. Again, I'm going to put the onion seeds in my hand, and that's pretty much everything in there. And I'm going to sprinkle that evenly along the top of the container and then tag it. And then last but not least, we are going to do the white onion seeds and then lightly sprinkle that on top and tag that as well. Now, when covering onion seeds, we want to be as sparingly as possible with the soil. The deeper we bury them, the less of the chance that they germinate. So I'm literally just going to lightly dust them with just a couple of millimeters of soil. That is it, and this is just the basic Jiffy potting mix. Now I'm going to take a hose and very lightly water in the soil and wait until the water soaks in well and evenly into the potting mix. And it's very important that we don't overwater these because remember, we didn't drill drainage holes in the bottoms of these containers. Then we will bring the containers up into my office and set them under grow lights on top of a seedling heat mat set to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. But wait, one of the most important parts is that we put the lids on top of the containers to create a humidity dome, but we don't want to close them completely. We need to only snap the corner so the other side can stay elevated and let in some fresh air. This will assure some amount of humidity that will build up, but we won't create an anaerobic environment that will lead to rotting of the seeds and fungal growth and damping off disease. After 7 to 10 days on the seedling heat mat, we should start seeing significant germination of the onion onion seeds with full germination after about 2 to 3 weeks. About 2 weeks after germination, we are going to have to start giving them a little bit of diluted water-soluble fertilizers. So for that, I recommend getting one of these small indoor watering cans and a water-soluble synthesized fertilizer like this, which is Jack's 20-20-20, but something like Miracle-Gro All-Purpose or Miracle-Gro Tomato will work just fine. We want to give it anywhere from 1/4 to 1/3 of the recommended strength. It's going to be very diluted, and the reason why I want to use those synthesized fertilizers is because I don't want to stink up my office. If you're starting these seeds outdoors or in a greenhouse or a place where you don't mind an odor, you can also use very diluted fish fertilizer as an organic means of giving these plants nutrients. We're going to have to fertilize these seedlings probably every 7 to 10 days with that very diluted fertilizer, and then they will be ready to transplant out into our garden about 6 to 8 weeks after everything germinates. So this whole process, from the day we sow the seed to when we bring them outside and transplant them, takes about 2 to 3 months. Onions take a little bit of time. After 2 to 3 months, you're going to wind up with something like this. This is a Zabroon shallot. This is the Texas Early Grano yellow onion. Now, admittedly, I let these onions go way too long, and they have overgrown. So that's why these are a little bit yellow and sickly looking. They should have been transplanted about 2 to 3 weeks ago, but I did not have the available garden space. But that's not going to matter because onions are the toughest transplants you will ever transplant. You can beat them up mercilessly during the transplanting process, and they are so hardy they will still grab hold in the soil and recover as long as you give them adequate fertilizer. So here I have a raised bed garden that I prepped about 2 months ago, and I just ran drip line down so everything is ready to go to transplant these onions. If you want to see how I re-nutrify my beds, I'll link to a video both above and down in the video description that will show you how. This bed has been sitting under a tarp for about 2 months preparing for this very moment. As I said, transplanting onions and shallots is very forgiving. So all we're going to do is we are going to pull out the big mass of shallots right here. We will start with them. There you can see just how big these shallot roots are. And then we are going to start pulling them apart. We're going to try everything we can to keep the onion roots or the shallot roots intact. So we don't want to completely destroy them, but we do want to pull them apart pretty evenly. Oftentimes you can wiggle the individual seedlings and they will come apart pretty easily if you jostle them around a little bit. And this is what your seedlings will look like when you pull them all apart. And now I preemptively laid out all of the shallots in my garden. I specifically laid these out along the drip lines to try and target the irrigation as best as possible. I gave each row 6 inches of spacing, and I gave each individual shallot plant 3 inches of distance from each other. This will give each plant enough room to root properly and develop strong bulbs. Now that everything has been laid out, I'm simply going to take my fingers and lightly stick them into the soil and dig a hole a couple of inches deep and bury the roots. And I'm going to go up and down each row in an assembly line fashion in order to make this as fast and efficient as possible. Then after the shallots are planted, we're going to do the exact same thing with our onions. You can see we have a big mass of soil right there. We are going to start peeling off the individual onions, and this is what the onion bulbs are going to look like when we peel them off. We're going to try to do our best to hold together as many of the roots as possible and shake them loose. That one came off much better. That one has a much larger root mass. But regardless, they should transplant just fine because onions are incredibly tough. After we get them started, it's pretty easy to peel the individual onions off the seams, kind of like how you're seeing right here. Shake and wiggle, shake and wiggle. Once you get things started, they pull apart pretty easily, and you can keep together a pretty nice root mass doing it like this. And just like with our shallots, we preemptively laid out all of our onions along the drip line, giving them adequate spacing to bulb. Just like with our shallots, we maintained 6-inch spacing between rows, but we gave the individual plants a more generous 4 to 5 inches of spacing in between plants, because remember, these are bulbing onions. They are going to get much larger than the shallots, so they need more space to grow. So we're going to plant these onions in the same way. We're going to take our fingers and dig out a little hole about 2 inches deep, and then make sure that we fully bury the bulb and the roots of the onions, then cover them up with soil and pat around them to make sure everything is firmly compacted. Now that our onions are planted, we have to fertilize them. This is a very important step, and to do that we are going to use 2 organic fertilizers. We are going to use this all-purpose fertilizer that's a 453 NPK. It says rose and flower food. This is going to be just fine to fertilize your onions. Anything close to a 555 or a 444 NPK is just fine. This is 453, close enough. We're also going to dust our trenches with bone meal, and this is a very important supplement for growing onions because this contains a lot of phosphorus and calcium to help build strong, healthy roots and big bulbs. So it's really important that we give them these slow release complete organics. So I'm going to go up and down each row, and I'm going to sprinkle the granular organic fertilizers along the trenches and drip line. Then after I sprinkle the granular organics, I'm going to do the same thing with the bone meal. I'm going to dust up and down each trench, and I'm going to repeat this process roughly every 2 to 4 weeks, once or twice a month throughout the season. Now we have to water in our transplants, and at first you might be thinking, why do we have to overhead water? Can't we just turn on our drip lines? No, because the drip line that I installed has an emitter every 6 inches, and these onion plants are not established yet. So if I just turned on the drip lines, well, they would drop a little bit of water every 6 inches, and our not established onions would not have the root mass to seek out that pinhole prick of water. So for the first 2 weeks or so, we are going to have to manually overhead irrigate this bed to keep the onions nice and moist, to form those roots so they can fill in all the gaps of the raised beds. And after a couple of weeks and those spider-like roots grow throughout the area, then we will be able to irrigate solely by the drip line. But until that day, we're going to have to maintain even moisture in the soil bed. So we're going to water them in very well now to help them establish and also compact the soil around the plants, and begin the breakdown of the organic fertilizers, because the organic fertilizers will not break down unless they are moist. And the last thing we are going to do is water in our onion transplants with some water-soluble fertilizer. You may be saying, didn't you just give them a bunch of fertilizer? Well, your granular organics in your bone meal, they're inert in their raw form. They have to be broken down by the bacteria and the fungi in the soil and decompose in order to make bioavailable nutrients that break down and feed the plants. The day you put them down, they do nothing. They take a couple of weeks, sometimes a month or more, to really feed those plants. So in the meantime, we are going to give them some water-soluble fertilizers that are immediately bioavailable to help kickstart them and to try and block any kind of transplant stress, because those onions just went through a lot. So I'm going to start off by giving them some Alaska fish fertilizer, which is an excellent source of nitrogen. So in 1.5 gallon watering cans, I'm going to pour in about 2 to 3 tablespoons of Alaska fish fertilizer. And then I am also going to give them a homemade blend of Jack's 20-20-20 and azomite. It's 3 parts Jack's 20-20-20 and 1 part azomite. The Jack's is not organic, but it will feed the plants right away, and that is what I really want. So we're going to give that a rate of 1 tablespoon per gallon, so 1.5 tablespoons in a 1.5 gallon watering can. There's a big old wasp on that right there. Then we are simply going to fill up the watering cans and mix them around really well, because it's very important that the water-soluble fertilizers have been mixed thoroughly. Then we're going to go to each row and evenly pour the watering can contents over the rows. So from here on out, all we have to do is keep things irrigated until the onions start grabbing hold. Once they grab hold, we can just run the drip irrigation periodically, making sure we keep the soil lightly moist. From there, we are going to fertilize roughly every 2 weeks, twice a month, using the organic fertilizers, the bone meal, and a little bit of the water-soluble fertilizers, because onions and shallots do demand a good bit of fertilizer. They're pretty nutrient heavy. From there, once the hard frosts and unfreezes of winter begin, we'll simply take this PVC structure and we'll put some agricultural fabric row covers over it, and then we'll clip them on with some 1/2-inch PVC clips. If you want to learn how to build these PVC hoops, I'll link to a video both above and down in the video description that will show you how. It's super easy, and when you put a frost cover over them, you can grow these onions easily down to zone 7, maybe even zone 6. Now, because we are growing these throughout the winter, they are going to take a little bit longer to grow due to the cooler temperatures and the short days. So normally these onions would be ready for harvest probably about 3 to 4 months after transplanting. Because we're planting these in the middle of fall and we're going to grow them throughout the winter, well, it's probably going to take more like 5 to 6 months. So everything grows slower this time of year, but just be patient, they will eventually be ready. And just like that, all of our onion and shallot transplants have been transplanted, and they sure look beautiful. As for the remaining space in the raised garden bed, within the next week, I'm going to put in some new romaine lettuce transplants that are ready to go. And as for the other onion seeds that I started in this video, well, they will be ready for transplanting out in my garden in about 2 to 3 months. And that's the real thing we want to do. Because it's so easy to grow onions, shallots, leeks, and the like, we want to plant a fresh crop roughly every 2 to 3 months out in our garden. That way we can have successive harvests and non-stop production throughout the year. And that right there is hands down the best way I have ever found to grow onions. This method is not only incredible for germination, but also for getting the transplants to take hold and have a year-round harvest. This is my new favorite way to grow them, and I hope you adopt the tips and the techniques in this video as well, because I think you can have as much success as I've had doing this. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring the notification bell so you're notified when I release more videos like these. For the seeds I featured in this video, I placed direct links to those seeds down in the video description for your convenience. For any of the products that I featured in this video, like the potting mix, the vermiculite, and some of the hand tools, I placed direct links to them down in the video description as well. For everything else I use in real life in my garden, that is all linked in my Amazon storefront. So expand the video description, click on my Amazon storefront link, and you can see a comprehensive list of everything I use in my yard and garden. And while you're down there, please consider checking out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support my channel. I just released a whole bunch of brand new homemade designs. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.
Okay, Daly just got his bath, and he's ready to air dry with his toy. And go, Dale! Well, that was not the best throw. Come on, Dale. It's time to air dry. Come on. Come on. Time to air dry. Air dry. Okay, Dale. You ready? 1, 2. Go, Dale! Oh, come on, buddy. You're all wet. Don't you want to run around? No, no, no. Get away from there. Come on. All right, he's going to be a bum. He's going to be a bum. He's all soaking wet.